want to do this scene here, and I want to give myself about an hour. So let's get it going. Okay, here's what I did for a quick sketch. Took about 5 minutes. Try to lock in my shadows and things like that, and we're gonna go for it from here. I'm mixing up kind of a purplish color with ultramarine blue, alizarin, and crimson, and a touch of yellow just to desaturate it. A little bit of white as well, so that it's not pure black. And this is what I'm going to use to start blocking in my shadows. Okay, now I'm going to start scrubbing in darks into the trees and putting in my darkest darks here. Up a really dark green for this tree here. And already you can see that the pattern of light and shadow is really starting to show up. Get a little bit more air in those shadows, so I'm actually trying to lighten them a little bit. These trees here, I need some atmospheric perspective. I don't know if you can see, but they are quite fainter, and so I'm going to try and dial this back a little bit. I've got more of a kind of a muted mix here with more white. Still doesn't really read, but I can come in with more highlights. That some more. Okay, that'll work for now. I want to try and get some of these highlights before they're gone, so I'm trying to mix up kind of this acid green. It's mostly yellow, but with a little bit of red in there. I'm going to try and pop that in while I still have the light. shift some of it a little bit to the green side. And I need to lighten it as I go farther back in space. So I'm adding a little bit of white to that. The ground plane will always be the lightest plane. My painting there. Okay, that's starting to shape up. I get some of these highlights in the road, they're kind of like a pinkish color with a little bit of purple mixed in, so that's what I'm going to mix up here next. I'm really trying to get this peachy color to match that, and I think I'm just about close. Maybe a little bit more red. Let's try it. I think it needs to be brighter. Add more white to that. There's product. So what I wanted to do is lead the eye through the composition and have the water tower be the focal point. But when, in a lot of ways, the scene that was before me is kind of a natural composition, and I like that so that I don't have to edit too many things from my natural scene. But within this painting, there could have been several other focal points, so it didn't have to be the water tower. It could have been maybe a car or a person in this area here where there's a lot of contrast, or it could have even just been like this part of the landscape with the light shining across it. Another option for the focal point could have been this building right here, but because I had decided that I wanted the water tower to be the main focal point, I downplayed the contrast and the lighting and the color saturation on this building here. So one of the things, I mean, the first thing you have to decide when you're going to lead the eye through a painting like this is what you want to be the composition. One other aspect that can help lead the eye are overlapping shapes. So the fact that this tree overlaps, this tree overlaps, this tree overlaps, these distant trees which are overlapping the focal point kind of helps the eye focus in this way. Another thing that I tried to do was set up the perspective so that there are not just the lines of the road, which is an obvious thing leading us towards this area here, but also even like the subtle perspective lines of the trees, the horizon line, and even the way that this tree kind of points us in here as well. This tree kind of points us over to the focal point. So thinking about how you can utilize lines to point you and to lead the viewer towards where you want the viewer to end up at. Even in a way like some of these clouds, designing the cloud shapes to again bring your eye in this area here. One of the big things that can really help lead the eye is focusing on strong contrast between shadow and light. And because these shadows kind of break up the landscape, it allows you to kind of jump from one area of contrast to the next, 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 and then here, right? And we do have some strong contrast. I could have maybe enhanced the shadow here, but one of the things you have to be aware of is that as things recede into the distance, that the contrast should lessen. So I couldn't make this like stark black because that would bring it forward towards the viewer. And so things need to be darker, closer to the viewer, and lighter farther away. That's why you see these dark shadows here are as close to black as possible. And then down in this area, right, the difference between the highlight and the shadow is quite vague, and also trying to just create that sense of depth. If you can kind of design your shapes to sort of point at your focal point, if you can use high color saturation to draw the eye and attract the eye in that way. And so all of these things, one other thing is utilizing more of like a purple to offset some of the yellows, having that complementary color shift that goes between some purples and yellows, orangey greens and blues of the sky. All of those things kind of interweave each other to direct the viewer towards whatever your focal point is going to be.